So I'm going to demonstrate our creamy blue cheese dressing, our classic ranch dressing, and we're going to talk about vinaigrettes. And so I pulled kind of a whole bunch of ingredients together, so we have some options here. So I'm going to start with vinaigrettes and I'm going to stop sharing in just a second. Okay, so the salads part 1 assignment, the directions are in the assignment. You were to create your own unique salad combination with a vinaigrette or a dressing. And was there another component? Oh, and you were needed to research each ingredient that you put into your salad for vitamins or minerals. Okay, so like tell me what their nutritional value is. And you can find most of that online. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. Does anyone else have any questions about that? So really today, I am going to demonstrate 3 types of salad dressings. And you don't have any assignment for today. Today is just a demo. You can ask me questions. You might want to either take some notes or take some mental notes. There will be a worksheet that goes along with Thursday's demo, and there might be some questions from this demonstration on there. Okay, I am recording it. It will go into Canvas if anyone is missing it. So I'm going to start with vinaigrettes. If you remember from yesterday, the Jamie Oliver video, and he talked about vinaigrettes, and he did his vinaigrette in a mason jar. Do you remember that? And so he did a 3-to-1 ratio on his. So he did 3 parts of oil, 1 part of acid. Okay. 3-to-1 is sort of the industry standard. That's what most people say. You kind of need to decide for yourself. When you're cooking at home, these are when you have opportunities to make it totally adapted to your taste. For me, I need more acid than that. I'm a 2-to-1, sometimes 50-50. If I'm doing a lemon vinaigrette, I might go half lemon juice, half olive oil, depending on the olive oil I'm using. It also depends on how acidic your lemon is. Not every lemon has the same acidity. All depends on the time of year. There's many factors. Okay, I am recording it, so if you are having trouble with your audio or Wi-Fi or anything like that, it will be in Canvas tomorrow, so you can watch it again tomorrow. Okay. All right, sorry, we're having some technical difficulties. So he also, the nice thing about making a vinaigrette in a mason jar is you can see that separation that you're getting. You can tell where your 1 part of vinegar is to your 3 parts or 2 parts of oil, depending on how you are going to make your vinaigrette. The one thing about doing it that way is you have a really broken vinaigrette. Okay, and we're going to talk about emulsifications next week when we make mayonnaise, because mayonnaise is a stable emulsification. That means it's not going to break or separate. It's always going to stay emulsified. Does anyone know what emulsification is? What it means? Pull up the chat here just in case. So we'll go a little more into the science of it next week, but basically it's when you're emulsifying something, you are taking 2 ingredients that don't like each other, that aren't going to mix together and combine and become one very easily. So oil and water, oil and vinegar, those are 2 things that they don't really like each other, and you have to figure out how to get those little droplets to sort of break and combine and become one. And so when we are making something like mayonnaise, where we're using egg yolks and things that are going to help us get some emulsification, kind of get our 2 ingredients to like each other, then we can get a really stable emulsification. And there's different ingredients that we can use. He used some Dijon mustard in his, and that will help you get an emulsification. But when you're making a vinaigrette, you are getting kind of a temporary emulsification or a broken sauce, basically. So I'm going to show you how you can sort of get a little bit more of an emulsified vinaigrette. It won't last forever like a mayonnaise will, but it will get kind of creamy, okay? So we'll get that temporary emulsifiedness sauce that we are looking for. Okay, so you all voted for red wine vinegar, and I decided we should put some shallots in our vinaigrette today. And the nice thing about making your own vinaigrettes, making your own dressings at home is you can really customize them to what you like, what meal you might be preparing it for. If you were going to, maybe you were making, maybe you were gonna make like a Thai green curry. What kind of salad dressing, what kind of vinaigrette do you think might go to do a salad that accompanies that? So you got spicy, you've got really bright acidic flavors, you've got some heat. Would you put a ranch dressing with it? Would you put a simple sherry vinaigrette with it? You might. What else could you do? What could you do? What would fall into that Asian profile that you might want to do? You might use a rice vinegar, right? You might use some cilantro. You might use some shallot and soy sauce, some lime juice, okay? So you can really customize your vinaigrettes to the meal that you're preparing and the flavors that you want to achieve. The other thing you can do is make just the amount that you need for dinner that night. So I'm a big fan of only making enough vinaigrette for my one salad, because whenever I make a big, huge batch of vinaigrettes, it goes in my refrigerator and then it usually doesn't get used up. Your family might be different than mine, but ranch definitely usually gets used up and blue cheese dressing gets used up, but vinaigrettes I usually make just enough for dinner tonight or for the meal that I'm preparing it for, and it's perfect. Okay. So we're going to do a very, very simple, basic vinaigrette, and you can change this a million different ways. I'll put that axis from Samine in Canvas so you can look at it, but depending on what meal you're going to prepare it for, what flavors you're going to go for, you could switch up the vinegar, you could switch up the oils, maybe you want a neutral oil, you could add lots of different seasonings to this, lots of different herbs, you could add some Dijon mustard, you could add some honey. There's lots of things that you can add into your vinaigrette to flavor it lots of different ways. But the one thing I like to do if I'm going to use some shallot or red onion, and I don't know if you all know the difference between a shallot and a red onion. This is a shallot, okay? This is a red onion. This is a regular yellow onion, okay? They're all in the allium family. This is going to be a little bit more tame. This is going to have a lot more bite to it, okay? So shallots are a very French ingredient in vinaigrettes. This is a very French vinaigrette that we're going to do right now. So I'm going to actually add my vinegar to my shallots, and I'm just going to eyeball this, and I'm going to let this sort of macerate. And what I wanted to do is to sort of start to lightly cook my shallots. It's going to temper them a little bit. So it's going to take that really, really strong onion bite that you get from a raw onion or a raw shallot and mellow it out a little bit. You can also do this if you are going to add some raw onion to a salad or to a dish. You could soak it in water and that will do the same thing. Okay, so I would let this kind of soak for probably up to 5 minutes. But I'm just going to kind of move forward. I definitely want to season my vinaigrette. So I'm going to season my vinegar before I add my olive oil. Does anyone know why I'm going to season the vinegar first? Why I might put my salt, if I wanted to add any sugar in here or any other spices, why I would add them before I add my oil. Why might I want to do that? So what is special about vinegar and lemon juice, lime juice? What are all those things? What's the word we use? We call them acids, and they sort of cook things. Yeah, they're acidic, and they also help dissolve things. So my salt is going to dissolve into my vinegar, and I'm not going to have big chunks of salt in my dressing. Okay. I am intentionally not giving you a very specific recipe for this. I have specific recipes in Canvas that are there for you, but I'm showing you how you can just create a really lovely dressing at home without a recipe, okay? I'm also gonna put my black pepper in here. I always wanna season my dressings. I want a good amount of black pepper. And then this would be the time when I might add some Dijon mustard. I might add a little bit of honey. Know that if you're going to add honey into vinegar, it's going to sort of seize up and not be very happy about it, and you're going to have to kind of work it around a little bit, but it'll come to its senses and sort of dissolve into the vinegar. It's just not going to want to right away. Okay. So now I'm going to slowly drizzle in my olive oil, and I'm going to try to get a really nice emulsification. Okay. So what I want to do is whisk, 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 and drip, drip, drip my olive oil. Slowly, slowly at first, and then I can slowly start to add it a little bit faster. And I want to whisk the entire time. And I'm going to slowly, it's going to get kind of creamy. And I'm going to get a temporary emulsification. So it's going to slowly come together, but it won't stay for very long. So it'll probably stay emulsified for a couple hours. And then it's going to want to separate. So I'm probably at about 50-50 right now. It's starting to get thicker. And this is where I would stop and I would taste my vinaigrette. And I would decide if I need a little bit more olive oil, if I added too much olive oil into it, do I want to add a little bit more vinegar? But you can see I have a little bit of an emulsification, but it definitely wants to separate, okay? I was holding it up way too high for y'all. So if I taste this with my finger, it should make me pucker. I should get some acid in the back of my throat, okay? Yes, exactly. Now, I think I probably added a little too much olive oil to this. I think it needs a little bit more acid for me. But you definitely want to taste it with the ingredient that you are going to be eating it on, a little bit of lettuce or something like that. If your vinaigrette is really bland, it's going to be even more bland when it gets onto your salad, okay? If your vinaigrette like punches you in the face and you are on the floor because it's so sour, you might need to add a little bit more olive oil, okay? All right, you can mix this up any way that you want and get lots of different options for it. All right, so if you are in Canvas, I'm gonna save that so we can compare that. I'm gonna save that all the way until next week when we do emulsifications. I'm gonna show you what it looks like. It's gonna separate out. And I'm going to show you when we do mayonnaise, we're going to look at the difference. Okay, so in Canvas, Salad Dressing Lab Classics 2 is the document. There is, I think there's 7 dressings on here, okay? There is a very classic creamy French dressing. Does anyone like French dressing? What would French dressing be good with besides on a salad? Put on a salad. It might be good with like some shrimp as like a shrimp cocktail, okay? There is a sweet sesame soy vinaigrette. There's lots of ingredients. These are way more complicated dressings on here than what I just made. I just made, how many ingredients were in there? 3. Shallots, vinegar, olive oil. We don't count salt and pepper. Okay. So sweet sesame soy vinaigrette, our rich and creamy blue cheese dressing, our classic creamy ranch, Thousand Island dressing, So Thousand Island is a very classic dressing. It's also really delicious on sandwiches. A balsamic miso vinaigrette. And we have a zesty Italian vinaigrette. Who's a big zesty Italian fan on here? Any of you? I used to really like the zesty Italian when I was a kid. Okay. So we're gonna start with our rich and creamy blue cheese dressing. All right. And I'm actually going to use my food processor for the blue cheese dressing. I like to use a food processor because sometimes the blue cheese, even though we're gonna crumble it up, it kind of wants to like clump back together. And I want it to get coated in all the buttermilk and the mayonnaise and be yummy and delicious. And have that blue cheese flavoring all through my dressing. So I have 4 ounces, so I have about 1/4 pound of blue cheese. And I'm going to crumble it into my food processor. I have kind of a funky food processor that has a few different bowls that stack inside each other, but if you had a mini prep food processor, this would be the place for it. You could also use your full-size food processor for this. And you can do this by hand. You can mash your blue cheese with a fork, but I just find that it all kind of wants to mash together, and I like it separated. Okay, so I'm gonna get my blue cheese in here. And I really want you to just see how easy it is to make your own dressings. Most of us have a lot of these ingredients in our refrigerators and pantry anyway. Maybe not the blue cheese, that might be a special ingredient, but a lot of you probably have sour cream, you probably have mayonnaise, you probably have some of the spices. Okay, so I got my blue cheese in there. I need 1/2 cup of buttermilk. So I have all my buttermilk that I need for both the blue cheese dressing and the ranch. So I'm gonna use half of this. I need 1/2 cup. Almost there. Okay, 1/2 cup of blue cheese. I need 1/2 cup of mayonnaise, whatever kind of mayonnaise you like. And definitely the mayonnaise is going to flavor this a lot. So if you're make sure you use a mayonnaise that you really like. Some mayonnaises have a lot of sugar in them and are really sweet, and some have no sugar. So depending on what your mayonnaise preference is, you could also make your own homemade mayonnaise that we're gonna learn how to do next week and use that in here, okay? So I'm gonna go 1/2 cup of my mayonnaise, and then I'm gonna do 1/2 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. You all might have a different brand than I use. That's fine. And I need some fresh lemon juice. Okay, did we talk about juicers and reamers when we did equipment? So I've got my lemon. I'm gonna cut my lemon in half. And there's a couple different ways that you can juice your lemon. You can just squeeze it. Some people like to squeeze it through their hands. I find no matter how tight I hold my fingers together, seeds always seem to like fall through them or fall off the side. So I do like to use some sort of juicer. You might have a juicer like this. I use this if I need a lot of juice, but I really like to use a reamer and a strainer. And I might do this into a bowl, or I could just do this straight in to my food processor. And I need a teaspoon. So 1 lemon is going to be about 3 tablespoons of juice. Okay. So I just need probably half of a lemon or juice in there. And I'm going to taste this. I might want a little bit more lemon juice when I'm done, even though the recipe says 1 teaspoon. I might still want more. Okay. All right. So then I need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Where'd my salt go? I'll put it back over here. 1/2 teaspoon of salt and lots and lots of black pepper. Blue cheese dressing loves black pepper. It's kind of why blue cheese and steak goes really well together. This would be a great dressing for like a steak salad. It's going to be the dressing we use on our wedge salad. So now I'm not trying to go for 100% pureed super smooth, no chunk dressing here. I want a little bit of chunkiness, but I don't want big, big chunks of blue cheese. So I'm gonna pulse it. And then I might check the consistency and see where we are. I think that's pretty good. So I love blue cheese dressing. This is probably my favorite. Okay. Hang on just a second. I want to show you what the consistency is. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull this out. And I like to store my dressings in jars. You can save jars from other things, from mayonnaise. You can buy jars. I can sometimes, so I do have some canning jars around a lot. My mother-in-law has given me a million jars, so I always have jars around. So this is great texture. And if you all can see, trying to visualize what you're all seeing. So it's pourable. There's some chunks of blue cheese, but they're not so big that I'm going to give one person a whole bunch of blue cheese and one person none, okay? Okay, so this recipe yields about a cup. You could definitely double it, make a bigger batch. You would want to use a full-size food processor if you were going to double it. You should taste it. Do you love blue cheese? Do you want more blue cheese flavor? You might want to up your blue cheese quotient. That's pretty good. Okay, it also depends on what kind of blue cheese you use. Did you get a really funky blue cheese that has a ton of flavor? Did you get a really mild blue cheese? If you buy the blue cheese that's in the crumbles, it's going to have a really mild flavor, and you might not get as much of a blue cheese punch. If you really like blue cheese, you should test and taste some different blue cheeses and see which one you like the best for this. And then use that same blue cheese every time you make it, because every time you use a different one, you're going to get a different flavor, okay? Let me grab, I'm gonna set this aside. I need to grab my washcloth really fast. Okay, let's talk about ranch. Who loves ranch? A lot of you said the other day that you really like ranch dressing. Now you're all quiet. You are quiet today. Okay. So I'm going to give you some ranch facts because it's probably, I think it is the most popular dressing in America. Okay, here's 10 things you didn't know about ranch dressing. Do you know where it was created? Who created it? I'm going to tell you. So ranch dressing was created in 1949 by a plumber turned cowboy. Okay, so his name is Steve Henson. He was working in Alaska at the time. He started cooking for his coworkers and perfecting his buttermilk dressing recipe. 5 years later, he moved to California with his wife and bought a ranch. So his famous blue cheese dressing soon became a staple at the dinner table called Hidden Valley Ranch. Okay. So in 1972, they sold their name and recipe to Clorox. So they no longer make that anymore. Clorox brand makes ranch dressing, the company that owns Clorox, okay? They probably don't make it in the same plant that they make Clorox bleach, don't worry. So the basic recipe was buttermilk, mayo, and herbs. And Americans consume ranch dressing 38 times a year, the average American does. There's a pizzeria in Dallas that jokingly sells a side of ranch for $1,000. There is ranch flavored soda. That actually sounds kind of disgusting to me. So today's ranch that you buy in the jar, in the packets, has very little resemblance to the original. So the original was buttermilk, mayonnaise, spices, and herbs. Wholesome, caloric, but delicious. It was not shelf stable. So they're shelf-stable alternative that Clorox and the competitors created. They use soybean and canola oil instead of mayo. They added MSG, disodium inosine, I don't know, disodium guanylate, and calcium disodium EDTA, among others. So they've added a lot of chemicals and a lot of other things to ranch dressing. So if you're buying your ranch dressing in a package or in a bottle, you're consuming all of those things. Not everyone cares, but I do. I don't want those things in my body 90% of the time. Okay, I have a 90-10% kind of rule. So Hidden Valley has developed over 70 different varieties of ranch dressing, and there are a million ways that you can make homemade ranch dressing as well. Celebrities such as Melissa McCarthy and Courtney Cox have been known to chug it. Maybe that's where soda came from. Hidden Valley Ranch sold $440 million worth of salad dressing in 2015. And then there is a restaurant in St. Louis that features ranch in every dish. What do you know? So this is a basic classic ranch dressing. I like this one because it uses pantry staples. I don't have to have a ton of fresh ingredients around. I can use mayonnaise that I always have. I usually have buttermilk. I pretty much always have sour cream. I'm using granulated garlic, granulated onions, some Worcestershire sauce, and my few fresh ingredients is parsley and dill, which is easy to get at the grocery store. I always, I have parsley in my garden and it grows all year round around here. So I went out before class and picked a whole bunch of parsley and some shallot. I like to use a little bit of fresh shallot, and it's pretty traditional in ranch dressing. If you are looking at different recipes online, you'll see some fresh shallot or some fresh onion or some fresh garlic in there. And I like to use the shallot. So some different ways that I make ranch. Sometimes I add some miso to it, adds a little bit of umami. I don't add so much that it tastes like miso dressing. It just adds this like miso punch. Sometimes instead of Worcestershire sauce, I add a little bit of fish sauce, or I add a little bit of anchovy powder. Again, it's not going to taste fishy. It just amps up that umami flavor. If I'm making like a taco salad, or I want more of like a crema that I'm going to put on tacos or burritos or something, I might add a whole bunch of cilantro, maybe some mint, maybe a whole bunch of lime juice. You could also add avocado, but if you're going to go avocado, you might as well make green goddess dressing, and we can talk about green goddess another time. So I need, for my ranch dressing, I'm going to do my ½ cup of buttermilk. I'm going to do a $1/4 cup of mayo and a $1/4 cup of sour cream. And when I make mayonnaise at home, I make mayonnaise, or when I make mayonnaise, when I make ranch dressing at home, I make it a lot, and I usually don't totally follow my own recipe. I've written quantities down so that I can share it with people, but like I said before with our lemons, acidities change depending on the time of year. Sometimes I don't always buy the same mayonnaise that I usually buy, depending on if I can't get it. Some of my ingredients might change. And so you need to taste and be willing to adjust your recipes a little bit. Okay. So I've got my ½ cup of buttermilk. I'm just gonna make my ranch dressing in a bowl. Okay. I need a $1/4 cup of sour cream. And I like sour cream. It's not always a part of ranch dressing, but I think it adds a really nice creaminess and a little bit of acidity. So sour cream is a cultured cream, so it has some acid to it. Okay. And then I need a $1/4 cup of mayonnaise. You can definitely, if you love ranch dressing, you can make a big batch of this, keep it in a refrigerator. It'll last for, call it up to 2 weeks. And you can put ranch on everything. You can use it as a dip. You can use it as a dressing. If you wanted to make this more of a dip for like a crudité, a vegetable platter, you might want to change the quantity a little bit. So there's a little more mayonnaise and sour cream, so it's a little bit thicker. This is gonna thicken up. Both this and the blue cheese dressing will thicken as it sits in the refrigerator. And so you might need to thin it out after it's sat for a little bit. Okay, I need a half a teaspoon of white wine vinegar. And full disclosure, I usually use champagne vinegar, and that's what I'm using right now. But I wrote white wine vinegar because most people have white wine vinegar as opposed to champagne vinegar. So you could use either one, okay? Champagne vinegar. And I need my finely grated shallot. So I've got the other half. I used a half of my shallot in my vinaigrette. I'm gonna use this, not all of this. I just need about a teaspoon. So I'm gonna grate this really fine, and mostly I'm getting the juices from it. It's gonna kind of juice my shallot. And so it's gonna give me that intense bite that I want from it and some sweetness, some oniony sweetness. I'm gonna use a microplane. You can use a microplane. If you don't have one, go ahead and use a box grater. This is just fine. If you don't have either of those things, chop it up with a knife as fine as you possibly can and then add it to your dressing. So I'm just gonna grate this in. It's gonna take me a second. And I'm not gonna need all of this, so I'll just stick the rest of my shallot into the refrigerator, or I might use it in whatever I'm making that goes along with dinner tonight. Okay, so I've got about a teaspoon of my finely grated, almost a paste-like shallot. I'm gonna add into there. And then I need a half a teaspoon of Worcestershire. So Worcestershire sauce has so many different flavors in it. It adds just a really nice depth of flavor. It has anchovy in it. It has tamarind paste in it. It has lots of herbs and lots of other things. So if you hear anchovy and things and you're afraid of it, just know that if you like Worcestershire, that has anchovy in it. So it's just adding that umami, that flavor that we love. Okay, half a teaspoon of granulated onion. Quarter teaspoon of granulated garlic. What goes next? Oh, lots of fresh parsley and lots of fresh dill. Okay, so I'm gonna move this out of the way for a second. So I love dill, and my kids love dill. And when I make ranch dressing and I don't put dill in it, they're not nearly as excited about it. When I make ranch dressing and I put a whole bunch of dill in it, they tell me it's the best ranch dressing I've ever made. So it's a big part of my ranch dressing. It was in the original recipe. If you think you don't like dill, try it anyway. And then chop it up really, really fine. You could definitely use dried dill in place of this. You would want to use a lot less, okay? So I would maybe like a tablespoon. Zella doesn't like the garbage bin. Sorry about that. They're very scary. So I'm just finely mincing my dill. And my recipe calls for a quarter cup of minced dill and a quarter cup of minced parsley. So if I was measuring this, I think I have a little more dill than I need. That's my quarter cup, but I'm probably just gonna add all of it in because it's my ranch dressing at home. But I'm gonna set this over to the side. And then I need a whole bunch of parsley. See, this is the parsley from my garden. Look how beautiful it is. It grows all year long, all winter long. My parsley was out there growing and I used it. So I'm just gonna pull off a nice amount. And again, I need a quarter cup for this quantity of my ranch. If I was making a larger quantity, I would want to double this. So remember, anytime you're going to double a recipe, you have to double all the ingredients in it. If you are having a recipe, you have all the ingredients in it. If you are, say you're gonna quadruple a recipe, you would definitely not necessarily want to quadruple all the spices, okay? You would want to start with maybe a 2 times on the spices and then seeing if you need more. So you're just running your knife through and getting these down as fine as you possibly can. And depending on if you like big chunks of herbs in your dressing, you could also leave it a little bit chunkier. Okay, so my light just went out. I've got my 1/4 cup of parsley. I've got my 1/4 cup of dill. I'm just gonna add the last little bit in here because I think the more herbs, the better. I'm gonna rinse my hands really fast. And then I'm gonna tell you why I'm not using the food processor. Okay, so I could put this into my food processor the way I did my blue cheese dressing, and some people do, and that's just fine. One of the reasons why I choose not to is because why get my food processor dirty if I don't have to? Because I just have to clean it. And then the other reason is that all these herbs, when they get blended up in my food processor, are going to, and I think my Chromebook just died, they're gonna change the color of my ranch dressing from a white dressing with speckles of green in it to a green dressing, okay? And I don't want my ranch dressing to be green. So I need some salt, 1/2 teaspoon, and some black pepper. Did I miss any ingredients? There's a lot of ingredients in ranch, but they're all easy pantry ingredients. I think I got them all, okay? Then I'm going to just give it a nice whisk till it combines. There we go. And you can see I've got my nice specks of herbs in there, but my dressing isn't green and it looks like ranch that you buy at the store, and it tastes even better. Some people like their ranch a little bit on the sweet side. You could add a little sugar or a little honey to this. I don't. So this is how we like it at my house. Does anyone have any questions? So we are going to use the ranch dressing and the blue cheese dressing on Thursday, and then we are going to build a warm bacon vinaigrette on Thursday as well. So tomorrow there's no Zoom. You have the whole day for a work day. I want you to give you extra time to get caught up on some things. I did get your grades out of Ruby. I'm still working on the issues with them, but I did get your grades that I can see right now. And so if you have not completed all the assignments in Ruby, which there are quite a few of you who still need to go do that, this is time for you to finish that. And tomorrow is a good time for you to finish that as well. Okay? Any other questions? No? Okay, you're all free to go. No assignment that goes along with the demo today, but hopefully you remember some things because there might be some questions on the worksheet on Thursday.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye. Have a good day. Spencer, do you have a question?